This is a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission Arts Project Support Panel for Region 12. I am Paige Sharp, Deputy Director of Programs for the Indiana Arts Commission, and I'm hosting here from Indianapolis today. Oh, thank you for setting up the recording. Today is April 27th, and we are meeting online and streaming live for applicants and the public to observe. And this is the panel for the Region 12 Arts Project Support Grant category. There is no contact between the panel and the audience about the applications before, during, or after the panel meeting. This meeting is recorded and will be available upon request. At this time, I will individually invite each of the panelists and staff to introduce themselves, stating their name, occupation, and where they are from in the state. So I want to go ahead and get started with the panel. And the first person that I see on my screen is Sandy.
Hi, I'm Sandy Muchler. I'm from Terre Haute, Indiana, and I'm the Executive Director of the Linda Lupke Strings Festival.
Great, thank you, Sandy. Andre?
Good morning, everyone. Andre Sanxonera. I'm from Indianapolis, Marion County. I'm a project manager for the city of Indianapolis, and I'm also a board member for Indy Hub.
Great, thank you, Andre. Keith?
Hello, I'm a retired band director from the Western School Corporation and the manager of the Kokomo Park Band in Kokomo, Indiana.
Great, thank you, Keith. Mandy.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Mandy Grimes. I am in Columbus, Indiana, working for the Columbus Area Arts Council as the program coordinator.
And Edward.
Hi, I'm Edward Trover. I'm an artist and studio arts instructor out at St. Mary of the Woods College in Terre Haute, Indiana.
Fantastic, thank you all. And then IAC staff.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jordan Adams, and I am the Artist Services Program Manager here at the Indiana Arts Commission.
And I'm Connie Braun. I'm the Marketing Communications Director with the Arts Commission, and we are here as a tech support capacity today. Thanks for joining.
Great. Thanks, team. We appreciate you. Okay, so now we'll begin the panel review, and this is how our process will work. I will announce the application and that we will review and then ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based upon the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please note that the applications do not need to be recapped since everyone has read it. Just provide your comments. After the first panelist is finished, I will ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We're not looking for consensus, just a full evaluation for the different perspectives panelists bring to the table. After the second reader has finished, I will open the discussion for final comments. And remember, in the interest of time, we are only looking for new, additional, or opposing viewpoints. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, which we do not have today, that individual would be placed on hold while the application is reviewed. Finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, we will ask the panel to update their scores in the online system. It is common for scores to change as a result of the broader discussion, and these scores save automatically. If you all don't have any questions, let's go ahead and get started. Last minute questions, here's your chance. Okay, cool. Well, we will go ahead and go to our first application, which is from Charlestown-Clark Public Library. And our first reader is Sandy.
Okay, thanks, Paige. I thought this was a really strong project and grant proposal. When you see a project that's been going for 47 years, you think that they must know something about what they're doing, and it's exciting to see longevity. And that their past experience, they have a lot of past experience to pull on in terms of planning and knowing what was successful. And it seems that they're utilizing that information, which is always a good thing. Such a nice theme of all together now, friendship at the library is really sort of set the tone, I thought, for this grant and the ways that humans connected. And then they built that into projects that cover a stream, and I like that, and the projects seem very age specific and age appropriate. Under community engagement, I think we all like to say, it's open to everyone, and sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not enough. So it's wonderful that they've planned to go to the schools and actually talk about these programs with the children, because that's the way to touch people that might not see a flyer or might not have access to social media. And I thought that was a real strength for them. The newsletter was bright and engaging and was very representative of their service area. The collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce seemed like a very good thing in terms of helping them evaluate their programs and doing a lot of network. So the staff seem experienced. They have a long history there. The timeline was appropriate, and I thought the budget was appropriate for the project. I thought all in all, this is a very strong project.
Great, thank you, Sandy. Keith?
Okay, I'm just looking at what's been mentioned and what hasn't. And I think this was Sandy did a really good job of covering everything. In terms of artistic quality, I thought it was good. The only thing is, since we don't know this organization called Viva Art, which was mentioned as a source for the artists, I would have liked a little bit more description of the instructors at least coming from that source, just to know that they have some sort of credentials. I'm sure they do. It just be nice to see that in the grant. In terms of community engagement, I was wondering how the project does a good job of taking this to the elementary schools and reaching those kids, but not much on how we're reaching the teens and adults who might not have, especially if they don't realize they have artistic ability, to kind of coax them into the program and get people who maybe don't consider themselves artists as such to at least give it a try. The flyers and newsletters are great. I was wondering if those could be designed in such a way to drive more people to the website and social media where they could get more information and, more importantly, share that information through social media. It's so easy to hit the share button and all of a sudden you're all over the place. And then looking at the website, what the program, just when programs are 6 weeks to a month, that'd be nice to see some teasers to kind of stimulate interest ahead of time. Otherwise, I think everything looks really great, and as far as the information provided in the grant.
Great, thank you, Keith. Other comments from the rest of the panel?
I just had one small one, a question that came to me when reviewing the budget. And this may be factored in somehow and it's just not listed, but what about materials for the workshops? Is that included with the budget for the instructor? Or are they in charge of maintaining that, or is that something separate? Just as an artist, I know that materials can get expensive.
Yes, they can. Any other comments? All right, go ahead and update your scores and queue up the next application. And when you're done, we'll move on. Okay. Our next application is the City of Jeffersonville Public Art Commission, and our first reader is Mandy.
All right, take it away. So, very strong application. There were several high notes that I wanted to remark upon this morning. The first one was their artistic quality and artistic support and artist support, excuse me. I thought that it was a great idea to allow the students in the project to connect with 9 different leaders from diverse artistic disciplines. It's very sure to expose those teens to an art medium or to an organization that they feel connected to within their local community. I also was feeling that their project management and timeline was very strong. It was broken down in a manner that was quite understandable to the reader and very thorough in its makeup of the activities. So I felt like you could really put yourself in their shoes and understand where they would be beginning and then where the project would end in a strong way. Parts of the application I felt needed just a little bit of work were the IDEA portion 5, that was their marketing and participation. The social media did not seem to specifically target the project's goal of establishing their Teen Arts Council. I would suggest maybe creating a social media story on Facebook, something to kind of grab the attention of the students who may not be on site at a school. I think in this time, there are a lot of students that still are not comfortable maybe being in a school building, so they're virtual or in just a different transition. So they might fail to learn about the project due to their circumstances. But there was a positive on that note as well with their community engagement. They were sure to note how they will create more inclusion in the decision-making process of their public art program. And all their social media links were very engaging and quite accessible and informative.
Great, thank you so much, Mandy. Ed?
Yeah, I also thought that this application was pretty strong. I think that it's a really great opportunity for not only the students, but also for art leaders. So being able to include kind of both of those worlds. Let's see what else. I also really appreciated the detailed timeline. I feel like that really spoke to the strength of, project management, well thought out plan. And let's see what else. I also had questions about the underserved community benefit. While I understand high school students are often underserved for arts opportunities outside of schools, it'd be great to hear more about the community at large and how that can factor in, just because the potential for long-lasting change is huge with a project like this. So it would be nice to hear that elaborated on a little bit more.
Back, thank you. Other comments from the rest of the panel? Yeah, Andre?
Yes, thank you. So I heard what Mandy said about the social media interaction and everything. I know that they haven't launched a program yet based on the application. This will be a new program. And it looks on their timeline that this will go over in the summer, so that we might give them an opportunity then to promote that on their social media and their website. On another comment for this, I will add that I have seen, I'm a product again from public system in Puerto Rico. So having the opportunity to have leadership opportunities like this have allowed me to be here where I am today. And that's something that here in Indianapolis, I've been able to see with multiple organizations like Indie Hub that allows those cohort opportunities to bring up the classmates and provide exposure and opportunity to different things that they might not be aware of.
Thank you. Keith?
Yeah, just a couple of things, and I may have missed it and just glanced over it, but I was wondering if it explains someplace actually how the teen council is participating in the implementation of activities or projects, and then of course if that's happening, then the numbers of those reached through those projects could also be included. And another thing that I noticed is there's a heavy reliance on Facebook, and with teens, that's probably not the go-to site for them. So branching out into some other things, whether it's TikTok or Instagram, might be something worth looking into for them.
Great. Anything else? Excellent. We'll go ahead and update your scores if you need to and queue up the next application, and we'll move on shortly. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and move on to Crawford County Communities Corporation, West Crawford Elementary, and our first reader is Sandy.
Okay. Again, was another project that I thought was very strong. Like the concept of using their art fair to fund further projects. And it was a nice switch on their fundraising last year during COVID to be able to switch to doing a drive-through and still have that fundraising activity. They seem very involved with the community, the sheriff's department. They do take the children out for field trips and nursing homes. The Arts Awareness Team is a great resource for both evaluation and planning. I thought that the promotional materials, you might want to brighten up a little bit and make them a little bit more engaging. I know that they go out to schools and the kids get lots of things, but it's a good way to help them reach other people by taking home these flyers and getting them out. The timeline had a lot of good information. You might consider, though, adding some of the planning, marketing, evaluation processes in there that will help you keep going throughout the project. Things that you know you're going to do, but it's always good to sort of have that in your timeline. The budget, the income was nicely varied. There seemed to be a lot of sources so that if one falls out, then they have some backup. The consumables seemed very low for that many children in art activities. Perhaps they're budgeted in, it is in the school. Perhaps they have other things, but that was the thing that I thought. You're doing a lot of artwork with a lot of people, and that just stood out to me.
Great, thank you, Sandy. Keith?
I'm assuming, reading this, that the school corporation, for one reason or another, does not provide regular classroom instruction in these areas. Is that a fair assumption, do you think? Yep. I think this is a good way to meeting that challenge, and I hope they're maybe fighting to for advocacy for classroom music as well. I'd like to see some specification in the description. Are these Indiana artists that are being used, and also what are the credentials of the visual and music instructors? I think there was maybe a little bit more. There's a little bit more room where they could maybe expound on that and give us a little bit more information. I like the idea of the Arts Awareness Team. I wasn't sure what the makeup of that group was and how different factions may be represented. Looking at the school website, it doesn't point at all to this program or to the arts, and it's not updated very often. And then the Facebook page only mentions arts-related activities when there's a concert coming up. And it would be really, really great if there were maybe some pictures and posts just showing the kids involved in the day-to-day, week-to-week activities, just to kind of keep the public involved. And of course, as I said before, that stuff gets shared, and then you get even stronger support for the program. Let's see, you covered the timeline, so I think that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Keith. Any other comments from the rest of the panel? Well, all righty then, we're good to go. Go ahead and update your scores. Our next application is Greater Clark Schools Advanced Program, and our first reader is Andre. And when Andre is done, Mandy, feel free to chime in as the second reader.
Thank you, Paige. So this proposal provided relevant data and information that showcased the importance of students having access to multidisciplinary skills and experiences, especially as our education system continues to reel in from the negative and social behavior learning that arose during the pandemic. The proposal also provided data figures that shaped the narrative around the community engagement piece, which I thought it was great, and included artists that can serve as an inspiration for underrepresented students who might be interested in STEAM, which I thought it was nice to hear about this because I'm usually used to knowing about STEM and not STEAM. So adding the component of art into science, technology, engineering, and math, it's great to see that. For the sample marketing material, I would say that it will be helpful for this applicant to include more information in form of a screenshot as opposed to a printed and scanned material, since it makes it a little bit difficult to read and review the material. Lastly, on the project management portion, the proposal provided a detailed information on who was involved in the project and when and how each step of the programs, which I appreciated. A very detailed budget proposal, which also included the summary per artist and line item.
Great, Mandy.
Hey, I'm unmuted. That's always my worst thing to remember when I do these things. Okay, well, I agree with the multidisciplinary activity. A great way to include the whole STEAM world into the art project. I think it's a fitting goal that they've already had for this successful project from the previous year, which will allow the students to learn through that STEAM multidisciplinary activity. They did a great job describing how the project will be demonstrating artistic quality. So those were some positives. Another positive that I felt coming from my background is that the marketing materials, I thought, did a wonderful job of linking that fish out of water analogy to connect with some of the experiences of high ability children's needs and exceptionalities, kind of giving them a little bit more wiggle room and recognizing that sometimes things aren't so linear in learning and sometimes they're more cyclical. So that definitely was a target that I kind of zoomed in on and thought that it was a great positive for the kids.
Wonderful, thank you, Mandy. Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and queue up the next application. Our next application is Hazewood Theater, and our first reader is Keith.
Okay, I'm there. Done queuing. As this will be Haywood's 51st season, a great deal of experience and sustainability is evident in this project. In my opinion, the shows are ambitious, and while there's 4 listed, their grant says there will be 5. So I guess there's another show that has to be decided on. Perhaps a little bit more information on the background of our credentials of the production team would give us a little bit more insight as to what's actually going on with that. And while it's assumed that Indiana artists are benefiting, it's probably a good idea to state this in the grant since the neighboring state's relatively close. Because of the limited venue seating, each of the 5 shows is performed 9 times. This provides even more experience for the cast and gives them a chance to outdo themselves at every performance. In terms of community engagement, the projects are easily accessible to all, including underserved populations. The organization is inclusive in terms of providing opportunities to newcomers, involving community, and encouraging all stakeholders to provide input. Board members are heavily involved in the production, helping with auditions, serving as ushers. The next step might be to actually reach out to underserved populations and develop relationships and encourage them to become engaged. Hayswood provides repertoire of a broad and diverse appeal. For example, one of the plays, She Kills Monsters, addresses LGBTQ issues, and while this wasn't specifically brought up as a point in the narrative, it is certainly relevant to community engagement. Management is strong and work seems to be very well delegated. The timeline, however, is somewhat general and could have included anticipated show dates, even if they're not official yet, and some additional details. However, it does provide good evidence of the systems and processes used for successful implementation. The budget includes a value of nearly $70,000 in volunteer labor to produce these plays. This is impressive, but usually, and if they get into a situation where they need to provide a match, only work donated from outside the organization is allowed in an in-kind, as in-kind. So that's something they probably need to watch. That's all.
Thank you, Keith. Andy?
Yeah, so I agree with all those points that Keith made. Some of the things that stood out to me was the concept of balancing the season so that it served the performers and the organization, but also the audience, to create an environment for the audience. And then in terms of the idea, the parts where they talked about bending gender roles for their actors and for their roles in the performances, and providing non-acting roles for those people who want to participate in the but couldn't, I thought were very strong. But otherwise, I think pretty much agree with what Keith said.
Are there any other comments? Anything else to add for the rest of the team? Okie doke. Well, go ahead and update your scores and queue up the next up. Our next application is Historical Society, Harrison County, Indiana, and Mandy is our first reader.
All right, so I thought that a very strong portion of this application was within the artistic quality and artist support. It seemed that many of the artists involved in the production of the art project have worked with the Historical Society of Harrison County before and in a successful manner. Evidence of their productions are featured on the YouTube channel, so I was able to go in and watch and view some of those past productions, which were, I think, done in a nice quality manner and very clear in how the project would move forward in the future. Something that I felt could use some work was in the community engagement section, which was labeled number 2 for project developed with community. Because it is a broad project, it's great that the project aims to reach people both within the community who already have access to this location and to the experience that they're trying to gain. But more importantly, they're also trying to reach beyond those who don't have access to these certain locations. Thoughts that you might want to add or maybe expand upon, or how will you include the input in the development and the planning of your project with those who might not know much about it. So thinking about like what teams have been made to take a leadership role in the planning process. Something else that I thought was needing a little bit of work was their project management timeline. The financial statement maybe could provide more detail regarding the description of money coming in, also reflecting the amount going out for their expenses. And also just to boost the timeline some, to reflect more detail on how the project will be accomplished from start to finish. Currently in the timeline, it's very broad with its explanation of ongoing work to be done just in the month of July. And other than that, that's the end of my comments.
Great. Thank you, Mandy. Ed?
Yeah, I think Mandy hit pretty much all of the points I had. I'll elaborate a little more on from my angle. I agree with the artistic quality. It's very straightforward. Got the experience, the support, goals are explicitly stated. Community involvement. I think it's great that there's the potential for providing access. I think that maybe the community could be better engaged prior, not just after, or elaborating on that. Let's see. Also like to see more evidence of what the marketing materials would look like and where or how they would be shared specifically. Project management, I also think that the timeline could have been broken down a little bit more, just including the production process of the project, like production goals, segment edits, those kinds of things. That could be really beneficial to make sure that the timeline is staying on track and kind of reaching those goals. I also had questions about the budget. I think that more information could have been provided. There might also be some funds that are needed for marketing or distribution of the project. That's it.
Fantastic, thank you. Ed. Any other comments from the rest of the panel? Any new or opposing?
There's a component of this, the concert, and I was hoping to see more detail about what that concert involved.
Gotcha. Anything else? Great job. Thank you. Go ahead and update your scores and queue up the next application. Our next application is House of Jane, and our first reader, I believe, is Edward.
Yeah, I thought this application was really strong. The artistic quality and experience is well evidenced. They've been doing the project for a while through the pandemic. I also really loved this adaptation, being able to provide access to the arts in this new world that we are living in. Community engagement and idea strategies, I thought were also really well developed, being able to provide these materials to people thinking in terms of access during a time when not everyone is comfortable going to a concert. It's great to be able to have new content kind of constantly being created that's accessible to everyone with internet connection. Let's see what else. Project management also felt very strong. As I said, they've got a track record of the material being produced, provided access to that for us to review. Let's see. The timeline is pretty straightforward as well. It could be expanded on maybe to think about when you're going to select artists and those kinds of things just ahead of time, just again to keep on track with your schedule and timeline. Budget is very detailed. Didn't really have any questions about that. I think that's it.
Great, thank you. Andre?
Thank you. So I really appreciate how this proposal showcases the local talent in a unique way for Madison. Over the last 2 years, I had the opportunity to work with the Indiana Independent Venue Alliance, so I understand the importance of independent music venues and for local artists, and seeing how this project pivoted during the pandemic to showcase the best of what Madison and the regional area has to do is good. And it definitely, after looking at the links, it shows a strong social media following. So it's been good to see from this project. My only small critique that I will have for this is I would have loved to see more additional details on what the free programming would have been and what that community event would have entailed that they're planning to use the commission's funding for this.
Thank you. Other comments from the rest of the panel? Okay, great. Let's update scores and queue up the next. Okay, our next application is the Jeffersonville High School Instrumental Band Boosters, and our first reader is Keith.
Yes, I hope I don't go too long on this. But providing the group lessons by accomplished professional musicians is is great from my experience in helping a program. I find this project's exceptional in its intent and potential impact. It would have been helpful to include the grade levels and ensembles that are specifically targeted by this project, and it just helped to better identify the audience. I would have liked to see some space devoted to how this ties into and advances the entire band program there. For example, does this enable them to, as a group, perform more sophisticated repertoire? That's a logical assumption, but I think there was room in the narrative to maybe comment on the benefits, the actual benefits. Looking over the pool of instructors, the expertise is outstanding. In their narrative, they were expressing concern that these were not all Indiana artists that were instructors. However, I think it's important to provide the best instructors available in that area, and those benefiting the most will be the next generation of Indiana musician artists being groomed by this program. So I think it's definitely benefiting Indiana artists in that respect. I would suggest maybe a little bit more inclusion in the artistic example of pictures, including bios of the instructors, and also maybe preparing a video of maybe solo ensemble performances of these groups that are being worked with, which could be used not only for grant purposes but for advocacy and for increasing support for the music program. This project might be more effective if students were given a significant role in planning. This is community engagement, in order to provide a greater sense of ownership with the recipients of this. Maybe helping to identify areas of playing that need improvement, or setting individual or group goals. These all can be used to accomplish this. Accommodations for low income seem to relate to ideas, strategies in terms of the entire band program and accessibility to this project. I'd like to see more reaching out to encourage participation by those who are considered underserved. While the narrative on evaluation focus on contest ratings, there's no mention of the actual rubric used for the evaluations and how this instruction affects the outcomes on that rubric. Since the number of those benefiting include the audience at all public performances, these performances should probably be worked into the narrative to justify those figures. In project management, the project is administered by the school band directors, but I'd like to see more details on the specific responsibilities of the project manager in terms of this project, and I think that would strengthen the proposal. The timeline provided, I felt, was far too general to provide a complete understanding of the project. I have many questions. If the project manager were to leave, would the timeline provide enough information to successfully maintain the program? When are the instructors contacted? When is the focus of instruction changing from teaching fundamentals in a masterclass form to performance-specific instruction for concerts, contests, solo and ensemble events? When are the instructors paid? And if necessary, when are facilities requested? I think all these should be incorporated in the timeline to give a good indication that the planning is really in place.
Great, thank you, Keith. Spoken from experience, I'm sure. So, Ed, do you have anything to add or other thoughts?
Just a few quick thoughts. I also noticed that in the narrative they talked about the efforts in shifting to more Indiana-based instructors, but I also recognize that the community is so close to Louisville, and it would make sense that they would include musicians from the area, and that the impact would be more so on the students, as the artists of the project. Other thoughts, I really love that the students were writing reflections. I think that assessment is really strong, and that it provides staff with info and also forces students to reflect. So I think that's a really great strong element. And having that quantitative data from the scoring combined with the qualitative from those narratives, that really helps with the community engagement, making sure that you can measure the impact and seeing how they're engaged. Yep, that was it.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts? Mandy?
I don't know if anyone else had this issue, but I had a hard time reaching their social media web link to their Facebook page, possibly a misspelling in the link name.
Anybody?
Yes.
Okay, other comments? All right, I keep muting myself while I'm talking, which is hilarious. All right. I have an idea. I think this might be why I keep muting myself. I need to take a quick break. Let's all take a break. I know we've been on here since 9 o'clock, and it has been a little over an hour. So let's come back at about here in about 5 minutes, no later than 20 after. That'd be great. Thank you.
According to the guidelines, you're supposed to tell us where the restrooms are.
I have no help. I don't know. You're just going to be lost in the ether, I suppose. Good luck. Good luck. I'll hopefully see you back in 5.
Use your psychic powers.
Trying to get some water to heat up real fast for more coffee because I can't have enough coffee ever apparently. But it just wasn't boiling fast enough. So I need to work on that. So welcome back, family. Let me cue up my little reader sheet and we'll figure out what's happening. So for those that are just now tuning in, I believe that we just went over the band boosters from Jeffersonville, and that means that we are going to queue up Lanesville Community School Corporation. And our first reader is Mandy.
And I'll take it away. All right. So Lanesville Community School Corporation did a wonderful job in their artistic quality and artist support portion. Great job explaining how the project is far-reaching in its scope, talking about how it will expand its art classes from kindergarten through the 7th grade into a deeper exploration of the fine arts. And it talked about this in both an individual impact for just a student on their own and the group as a whole for grade levels and for the school. So great job doing that. Artists as well as the community in general will be able to experience multiple unique not multidisciplinary, but just a whole group where everybody's seeing and feeling and engaging in the same manner without needing to travel, which was great. Something I think they needed to expand upon a little bit would be in their community engagement. They need to try and number their narrative answers for the IDEA, just to help you break down exactly what they were talking about. It was more in a paragraph form for just the format, just 1, 2, 3, 4 to target those responses. The marketing materials were not as clear and understandable as I was hoping, yet there were plenty of examples included to demonstrate who the artists were and how their events will be portrayed to the audience and the participants. The social media web links, again, were hard to follow. I mean, when you clicked on them, they weren't exactly going to where I think they needed to go. Like, they did not supply the appropriate information. So those need to be looked at again. And then when we go to their project management and their timeline, we had something that was great and something that needed a little bit of work. A note to remember, I think, on your project timeline was just to make sure you demonstrate how that project will be accomplished from start to finish. It was a little too broad. And then something that was really great with their budget, it was quite thoroughly described and itemized according to each workshop and assembly that would take place. That's all I have.
Great, thank you, Mandy. Andre, God.
It's all good. Thank you, Mandy, for that summary. I also appreciate how this program, despite being so close to Kentucky, still find ways to incorporate and promote local Indiana artists and organizations, while also ensuring that there was a myriad of experiences and culture represented in their programming and the artists. Similar to what also Mandy added, I would have loved to see a more comprehensive timeline for the project, especially since they had, again, a variety of artists and disciplines, so it would have been more useful to understand which artist was going to do what at what time period during the program project.
Great. Any other comments from the rest of the panel? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and update your scores and queue up the next application. Is the Madison Performing Arts Foundation. And when you're ready, Ed, go ahead and get us started.
All right, so the goals and purposes were very clear, with stating that it's for partial funding for its annual concert series. Let's see what else. To bring classical music, including access to the classical music. One element that I thought could be improved, made stronger, was in the artist support. It seemed like only 5 of the 12 chosen performers were Indiana-based. Though I will say that I think it's great showing the inclusion of students. The community involvement seemed really strong in both the planning and marketing of the project. Let's see what else. Timeline, very explicit, great. Lots of materials listed also for the artistic examples. One concern I had was in the budget. It was listed that all the performers were being paid except for the students. I think that it would be great if there was some way to provide funding towards the Young Musicians concert, just because, I mean, it's great to provide them that opportunity. Obviously, that's a huge benefit, but I think providing funds to almost all of the performers, but the young musicians, that's a missed opportunity to be able to continue to encourage them. That's all I've got.
Great, thank you. Sandy?
Yeah, I also thought that this was a great project. An excellent lineup and a very ambitious project, I would say. On their surveys, and both with the students and the community engagement and artistic qualities, that maybe some sort of open-ended questions. I think sometimes when we do surveys and we check off boxes, it doesn't give the impact and the feedback that they're hoping for. So that would just be a suggestion, to have some open-ended ways for people to communicate. I also was very pleased to see that the students were able to perform in a real concert. They work hard for that ISMA performance, and so it's nice to get another validation on that. And then the survey was the community engagement again was good, but I'm not sure that it was necessarily getting at what they needed. They talked in the idea section, they talked about that people could call board members to get rides to these concerts. And I was curious where all those rides were coming from, if they really got a lot of them, whether board members were providing that, and if so, was anyone being compensated to transport people? And then finally, in general, it concerns me when I see a project that's so heavily grant driven. I don't have a way of knowing if those grants are secured or not. And so you just wonder what's going to happen to this project if the grants that they're hoping for, that they've applied for, don't come through. But I thought in terms of the project itself, it was exciting and very ambitious.
Great, thanks. Any other comments from the rest of the panel?
I would prefer in the timeline that there's a little bit more detail instead of saying the publicity, including radio announcements, newspaper articles, posters, begins 3 weeks prior to each performance. Maybe a little bit more of a breakdown on that timetable. Most of the time, the timeline is a list of events and has good detail there, but also allowing some room for follow-up also in the timeline would be helpful.
Great, good add. Anything else? Okie dokie. Well, go ahead and update your scores and queue up our next application. I think we're down to just 5 more. Our next application is Metamora Creative Arts and Education Center, and our first reader is Andre.
So for this application, I had a little bit of a hard time understanding the artistic purpose for it. I know that they want to buy equipment with this grant, so I will encourage the applicant to share additional examples on how previous works and what will they be producing with 3D printing in the past, while also providing proposed ideas of how the community will engage and learn from recycling while also doing the printing 3D pieces process as well. I think another good opportunity for this proposal was to introduce basic STEAM elements by incorporating them into the 3D printing process. And last but not least, as a first year program, I will also recommend for the organization to exhaustively reach out to local stakeholders such as schools, churches, and youth organizations within the community to promote the proposed projects and upcoming events for Go Green Metamora.
Thank you. Sandy?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I thought that it was exciting to see that a program like this was a helpful force in bringing internet to this community. I mean, it's got to impact their ability to touch lives as well as the community itself. It seemed like the community was very engaged in cleaning up. I mean, the whole idea of this recycling is also building the community and cleaning it up and selling things through the visitor center, which earns income. So to me, this project had a lot of community impact, not just the participants. Let's see. The timeline I thought was not as fully developed as it could be. It's a new project that sort of takes time to develop that, but it certainly looked like it was off to a good start. I really wasn't sure what this in-kind $300 a month for 10 months, where that was coming from and how secure that was. They mentioned that they were getting that in kind, but not a reference to what it was. But I thought it was a very nice project.
Other comments?
I also had some confusion as to the purpose and goals, and specifically looking at the budget, they were requesting the 4K, and looking through the materials that were provided, the machine looks like they were asking for 5K, and then the machine is 4K. So I was I was curious what the other 1,000 was for, if that was towards a printer, if they have a printer, if they're needing to upgrade, if they have a computer. I know there are a lot of things that kind of go into 3D printing as far as other equipment and necessary things. So I think being able to break it down more on those cash expenses could be really helpful and strengthen the proposal. And then I also had questions about the experience of the instructors, just because, trying to find my notes here. Let's see. Yeah, that, you know, having experience designing artwork on a computer is totally helpful, but I have some experience with 3D printing and know that it is vastly different than just 2D designing on a computer. So being able to evidence that experience would also really strengthen it. But I thought that the management planning and all of that was in really great hands with all the experience that was listed.
Thank you. Any other comments?
It's been a while since I read this, but I think I was under the assumption that the equipment, that the amount was being spent on the machinery, 2 machines, the 3D printer and the device that converts the recyclable material to fiber. And I thought I read that someplace in the grant.
Gotcha.
Maybe it was
Anything
in the
else?
attachment.
Just
Andy?
one more quick note. I love the project's marketing materials. They were very appealing, but I felt they lacked certain details needed for those to understand if there were any age limits for the project or the location for where the event would take place.
Great. Great feedback. Thank you, team. Let's go ahead and update scores and give the next application. And our next application is North Harrison Band Boosters, and our first reader is Ed.
All right, I thought that this application was really strong. The artistic quality is really well evidenced. The stating of the purpose and goals of paying artistic instructors to really help with the winter performance ensemble students. Let's see what else. The community engagement, you know, providing performance opportunities in rural communities, being able to provide that is really great. And also, you know, not only the impact on the students, but also for the community to be able to come and experience musical performance live is great. The rubric is mentioned by judges for attending competitions to measure the impact. It'd be great to know more about what that rubric looks like and how that could translate into being able to improve performances and those kinds of things. Let's see, what else? The management portion, listing all of the staff seems adequate as far as experience needed. And the timeline is laid out pretty well, though brief. It might be nice to have a list of how many competitive shows there are going to be, and project budget is also laid out pretty well as far as, you know, the competition fees, performance design, those kinds of things. That's all I had.
Great, thank you. Keith?
Yeah, starting with the first statement in the artistic part of the grant, it says the goal of this project is to continue top-notch artistic instructors, and it seems to me like the goal should be based on the outcome that they're looking for from this program, and that the instructors are a means to reach that goal. I'd like to see further description, excuse me, in the narrative, strengthening support for the project and resolve some unanswered questions, such as how is the creative process handled, who's involved in the program design, what's their experience, are they also Indiana artists? How are the goals addressing aesthetic aspects, addressing arts education standards, for example, rather than just being sort of a music sports team, where the emphasis is on scores and points, and using music as a vehicle for competition. What are the artistic benefits from this? And I'm sure they're implied, but I think they need to be more specific in the grant presentation. I'd like to see more credentials listed for the instructors involved. There's a list of what their responsibility is, but not much on their background. Since this focuses on just the color guard and percussion, how is that benefiting the band program or the music program as a whole? What's going on at this time for the other students? Are they being left out of the process? Again, they may be part of the process, but it's not specified here. Aside from being spectators, how is the community as a whole, not just the band community, feeling engaged or feeling some kind of ownership in this activity? Accessibility is understood, as this is the nature of a school-sponsored activity, but are there additional intentional measures to recruit or accommodate underserved populations? I agree that timeline should have more detail, and what I was hoping to see and what I expect to see is a timeline reflecting the recruitment process, the program design. When are these designs? When does that process start? And what kind of follow-up there is.
Great, thank you, Keith. Other comments?
I was just going to say that I think using teachers to teach the children and help them is great. And I'm wondering if down the road more sustainable would be teaching the band directors, doing some more work with them directly so that they're getting those skills at the same time. But I thought that the strength was that they have staff there specifically with ADA training to make band more inclusive than I think it is in some school programs where those children are not necessarily included. And that was for me a real strength in the project. So those were my two most comments.
Yeah, can I come back with something just
Sure.
from my own experience? These activities are so specialized that even well-experienced and well-trained band directors don't have the expertise to effectively teach color guard and all the sophisticated dancing they do, nor percussion, because it's such a specific and unique activity that we really need the specialists in there.
Thank you, Keith. Anything else? We'll go ahead and update your scores and queue up our next application, which is Oak Heritage Conservancy.
So I thought this project was well established, and it was a different way to engage the residents in appreciating the beauty of parks and agritourism and conservancy. I think we can all agree after being locked down for the pandemic, how healing and great nature can be. So that was a great opportunity for them to showcase this in their project of having people explore their local parks and go and explore those new places that they may not have known before. So that was great. I would like to see more of the support to the artists. I think the honorarium that they have for the judges was a little bit low, and I think they could have a little bit more of a contributions to the photographers that participated in the project, as opposed to just giving them a framed copy of their wedding photo. I think also recommendation for them as a government official is for them to maybe reach out to the Indiana Destination Development Corporation, because it's great to showcase what's around our state. And I think that would be a good opportunity for them to partner with them and showcase the best of show winners for soccer promotional materials for state materials. And lastly, I would have liked to see more of a breakdown on where and how the admin cost is destined, whether this is staff time, survey platform subscription, et cetera, to provide us a better understanding of where almost 40% of the expenses are allocated for this project.
Great, thank you, Andre. Mandy?
Yes, sometimes nature's most magical places are not found until we're kind of lost a little bit. And I think that's what the pandemic did, is kind of it brought us out of where we were typically. We saw some different places. That's one thing I loved about this project. It talked about how they're actively seeking to engage artists who might not typically show interest in some of those rural treasured spaces. And so, engaging them and bringing them in. Also trying to reach a wider audience that is not passive, but more participatory, as stated in their application, is so appreciated. Something that was also very positive and had something that reached out to me was that each IDEA component was well addressed and explained thoroughly. Their marketing materials also were colorful, had very nice descriptive images, and great information.
Fantastic, thank you. Any other comments from the rest of the panel? Ed?
I thought that the inclusion of the idea of photography through cell phones was really great for increasing access. I think that could be spoken to more by including that somehow in the call for entries, whether that's like an image of someone, there's an image of someone taking a picture with like a traditional camera, but and I don't think I've ever seen this anywhere, but the idea of like someone taking a phone to like a flower or something, to really drive home that idea and strengthen that idea. I also really appreciated the inclusion of free entries to be able to increase access. That is a huge boundary for artists of all levels, actually. One other question I had about it was in regard to the budget. Staffing overview left me wondering who's in charge of the exhibit installation. Will that be on the hosting site, or is that just kind of rolled in? And the itemized budget was developed really well, but I questioned that last line of mileage and miscellaneous grant administration. I think it'd be really helpful to separate those two expenses to be able to see it, how that breaks down further, especially since there were admin costs to manage the program listed previously. And it utilizes the largest portion of the budget. So that just kind of brought those questions to mind. But overall, I think pretty strong and well developed.
Great. Any other comments? All right. When you're ready, we'll move to Ohio River Valley Folk Society, and our first reader is Sandy. So whenever you're ready, Sandy, take your time.
Excuse me. I liked this grant very much. I thought they did a great job. It's clear that this project is an asset to the community. It's bringing people in, but it's also affecting a lot of their economic growth because their lineup is very strong and people from other areas are coming in, and it's helping. It seems clear that it's helping to build the community. There was a nice diversity in their performers. And then the fact that they're taking the performances into the schools is reaching those children who, no matter how much you market to them, may not be able to get to public concerts one way or the other. And it creates a buzz that children will go home and say to their parents, I saw this in school, let's do it, in a way that it's probably the best marketing you can have, is when your child comes home and wants to do something. When you ask for surveys and feedback online, then you are sort of, in some ways by nature, skewing your demographic. You may be reaching people at your performances who don't have access to or are not savvy with doing online surveys and things. And so finding ways to do that in more direct ways, it seems to me would serve them well. I suspect that they're serving a lot more people than what their surveys are showing. They're having participants than what they're showing because of that aspect, particularly in a rural community where not everyone has easy access in a time when they might think about doing it. The board seems very committed to this project. I did find it interesting that none of them were artists, and they're putting on this amazing arts program. The timeline could show more about the marketing and the planning and the process. Again, just to help direct that and keep them on task and to know where they are in the process. The budget seemed appropriate, especially if their sponsorship seemed to have a history. And with the longevity of this program, it seems likely that they have sponsors that are very loyal to them. And so assuming that that's true, then everything looked good to me. It's nice.
Great, thank you. Mandy?
Yes, I agree with Sandy on getting that engagement piece through the children. And something that I really felt strongly about was, again, their artistic quality and artist support. Many of the hard to accomplish tasks when you put something on this large that are, like recruiting the artists to participate in the festival have been well thought out and well managed through the board. So great way to accomplish that endeavor.
Fantastic, thank you. Any other comments from the rest of the team?
I just wanted to mention again, counting volunteer work from within the organization really technically should not be listed as in kind, and I think it's really impressive, that commitment, and it certainly should be included in some part of the narrative. But if they apply for a grant that requires matching, then that would disqualify that component of it if that was what they were doing.
Thank you, Keith. I will check into that because you're absolutely correct. That is not in kind. That is applicable.
It really doesn't make any difference in this grant, so there's no match required. But
totally, yeah. Any other comments?
A positive of them getting recognized on Bell Magazine, which is a regional publication that highlights what's happening in the Midwest, and also how then, along with the previous organization, House of Jane, have been working again on this narrative of making Madison a destination for music and arts for the region.
Thank you. All right, unless there's any other comments, we'll go ahead and move forward. So the next application that we have is Southwestern Jefferson County Consolidated School Corporation. And when you're ready, Keith, and take your time, you're our first reader.
Okay. This project is to provide support for the band program, including classroom as an academic course, which band is, and the extracurricular activities of the program. A problem, to be honest, in looking through this grant is that throughout I felt like it's understating what they're doing, and there's we have to advocate for the arts and within our programs, and I think the school administration, parents, and that sort of thing, and so there's several unanswered questions. So I'd like to see in the description more details in terms of what musical concepts they're trying to accomplish, the repertoire that they hope to perform, and what approach they're using to teach this repertoire. What are the past accomplishments of the students in this program? It's also unclear specifically how these students benefit from the project. It's implied or assumed that we know that. I would also like to see more information on how they're striving to advance and improve artistic quality within the organization. There are some videos of what they're doing, but I'd like to further see, where they're heading with this. In terms of community engagement, while the program is accessible to underserved populations, the narrative does not offer ways that the project reaches out to those individuals, or that there's an intentional effort to employ idea strategies. So the next step would be involving students and the community to go beyond just welcoming suggestions, but to actually involve them in the planning and evaluation process. I'm sure the students receive grades, contest comments, and scores. How are these evaluations used to advance the program? That is very important information to include in the program, and there's enough space to do that. The programs provided do not list. These are the attachments. The programs that were PDFs. Maybe they didn't come out correctly, but they don't list the performers, nor do they list the selections that they're playing. And the Facebook site, I tried to get more information there, and it seems to be used almost exclusively to announce rehearsal postponements or reschedule meetings and occasional contest result. But that page could be a valuable tool for showing daily accomplishments with pictures of the kids having a blast while they're making music and working together. I would also suggest pictures and video clips on Instagram. Students and faculty will share these and further promote the program. In the management section, providing more information on staff would be beneficial to the request. Besides getting a degree, what are the past accomplishments that would enhance these credentials? What are the qualifications of the specialists who will assist? Those need to be included as well. The timeline has an extensive list of activities that the students are involved in. Be sure to include community preparation, planning, and other actions leading up to and following the project. The timeline should demonstrate how the project will be accomplished from start to finish. In the budget narrative, I think maybe this was mentioned before the meeting started. We just need the expenses and the income do not match. However, in the place where those numbers are put in place, the numbers do match, but in the narrative portion they don't. So that's all I have. I think it's a worthwhile project. I think that many aspects of the presentation could have been stronger.
Right, thank you, Keith. Andre?
So you covered most of what I wanted to share already. I will also add, it would have been great to see more information on how the impact on the students was through this project and on their marketing materials, apart from getting more information on the program, to also see examples of social media posts or marketing in local newspaper or the school newspaper, to making sure that the event is being promoted to the community as well.
Any other comments from the rest of the panel? Andy?
Just one quick one. I note that schools can be unique places that provide great education and instruction in the arts. One thing I think they need to make sure they're clear on is to how would they provide the students, based on the IDEA strategies listed, to help assist the students who have mental and physical disabilities, like, for example, some sensory needs, maybe be able to experiment with different types of instruments or materials that would best suit them.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Okay, we'll go ahead and update your scores, and that was our last application. So congratulations, panel, you did it. Thank you. And this officially concludes the Region 12 panel for Arts Project support here today. Thanks you all for who has tuned in. And if you have any follow-up questions, you are more than welcome to contact me at psharp@iac.in.gov. Thank you.